To everyday life. I'm a massage therapist, so I love yin yoga because I really feel like it gets into the joints and like the deeper fascia, and some really good work goes on. A good preventative care, actually, really, with yin yoga. And so we usually start off with a little anatomy spiel about what we're going to work on today and kind of a muscle that's involved in a couple of the poses that maybe we could bring more of our attention on when we're in the pose, giving us something to, just another option of something to think about. So I'm going to share my screen, and the muscle we are going to share today is the rhomboids. I'm taking my licensing exam for New York State. I'm in New York. My massage therapy licensure exam tomorrow. So I have been studying a lot, and a lot of questions on the rhomboids have come up. So this was also a review for me. So rhomboids, major and minor, they're a pair. It originates on the spine. The spinous processes of T2 to T5, thoracic 2 to thoracic 5. So you want to find that bony notch right on the back of your neck. That's T1. Right below that, boom, is where T2 is, and that's where rhomboid minor begins. And it goes all the way down to T5. Then it kind of does a nice wash over the ribs and attaches on the shoulder blade, on the scapula. And its function is to retract the scapula. So I put on here, think Rose on the Titanic. That movement of Rose on the top of the Titanic, feeling the wind, arms going back, is her retracting her scapula. The rhomboids also downwardly rotate the scapula. Its main function, like if we were to use it in everyday life, it would be like, it would be that wind up before a big throw of a baseball or a big volleyball, that thing pulling our arm back, that's the rhomboids. And thinking about rhomboids, how often do we do that Rose from the Titanic motion? How often do we whip a baseball? Maybe some of you do every day. In that case, you probably have amazing, happy rhomboids. But we rarely do that kind of movement in our everyday life. Instead, we're normally, like bringing back to my screen, we're normally actually stretching our rhomboids. Because when we're in this position, it's the opposite of this. So we're actually giving our rhomboids a small stretch, kind of in just our normal posture. And what's getting tight is these muscles here at the front, our pecs. So yeah, again, you want to think both front and back. And then I'll share this once again. Another main function of the rhomboid I wanted to put in here is that it anchors the scapula to the spine to prevent winging of the scapula. I always kind of want to include a little bit about injury here, possible, or not injury, but possible, I guess, pathologies of the muscle, just in case. We're going to practice today with shortening our rhomboids. So we're going to be stretching our pecs, but we're going to be shortening these rhomboids so they get closer into the spine. They get almost mushier. We're going to do crocodile. We're going to get supported fish. And we're going to do sphinx. For a stretch of our rhomboids, we are going to be in child's pose, which is one of the best stretches for rhomboids. And also just a great stretch for the spine. But those are the poses for today, so that's something we can all look forward to. I also wanted to bring in what is winging of the scapula. I didn't want to just say it and not have any context to it. So this is an example of a winged scapula. The scapula on the left is clearly winged. And you can kind of see from the previous picture where the rhomboids might go. On the winged scapula, the rhomboids would be really in a much different situation than this model picture. And a wing scapula can happen when the dorsal scapular nerve, which originates at C5 of your neck, cervical 5, is entrapped. So when that nerve is entrapped, kind of like how in sciatica, your sciatic nerve gets trapped, this winged scapula of the rhomboid will happen if your dorsal scapular nerve is entrapped. Anyway. Okay, so Greta and I will switch off during the class, and so you'll be hearing my voice again. But from here on, I will take it to Greta and we can work into our rhomboids.
Beautiful. Thank you for that lovely rhomboid explanation. I love the Titanic rose. It's also, it must be like cactus arm back bends. So if you want to find a comfortable seat before we get into our practice, and we'll start class with 3 rounds of Om, and I chant Om to connect us to resonance, sound, vibration. We may not be sharing the same space, but we are sharing time together and space in a different context. So finding a comfortable seat, finding a tall spine, relaxing your shoulders, feeling connected to the ground, relaxing your jaw, the neck, and we'll do 1 clearing breath and then 3 rounds of Om together. Inhale in through the nose. Exhale, AHA out of the mouth. And this time, prepare for Om. Inhale. Inhale, breathe in. Exhale, release. Let the breath go. And go ahead and make your way into a child's pose, Balasana. Kind of the classic starter pose. Bringing the toes of the feet to touch. Knees can be extended. Knees can come together also. And bringing the arms out long in front of you, maybe with extra intention to the rhomboids. You can also incorporate the use of props if you'd like. We'll be here for 5 minutes, so if you want to bring the chest down onto a pillow, I'll give a halfway mark if you want to alternate cheeks too, if you don't like bringing the forehead to the ground. And then once you get settled, once you get situated, I'm going to briefly talk us through yin. And yin yoga is, there's so much to say about yin yoga. Energetically, yin is very slow. It's reflective. It is something we use, a tool for deep listening. It's the opposite of yang or yang energy, which is going to be intense. It's going to be urgent. It's going to be quick. It's going to be bright. And yin is the opposite. And neither of these two things can exist without the other. So neither of these energies are absolute, and very much they're in flux. They complement each other. These energetic qualities that I'm pulling from come a lot from Taoist theory and meridian theory and Chinese medicine. Yin, in terms of anatomy and physiology, stresses and compresses the connective tissue, the bones, the ligaments, and also your joints. And there are 3 tenets or 3 tattvas that are associated with this practice, 3 pillars, principles, if you will. And the first is to find your gentle edge, which we already did for this pose. And the gentle edge is maybe 30 to 70% of your range of motion. The main thing is when you get into your pose, asking yourself, can I hold this for time? And the answer is no. Pulling your edge back, or utilizing props. And you can use blankets, you can use pillows, you can use cushions. Like, your home is your oyster. Like, pull from it, get creative with how you're using props. They're really meant to support you. So finding a gentle edge. Number 2 is It's funny because these tenets, like they really could be anything. But number 2 is technically being still. And stillness is very much incorporated with yin yoga. It feels like that energy. And if you're invited to go deeper into the yin pose, move in, move deeper, follow your edge. The one thing we want to be mindful of though is pain. And this is definitely not the kind of environment where we're like persevere through the pain, like push through, exceed your limits. Like that is not this. It's the opposite of that. So if you're experiencing like a sharp sensation or a burning sensation or like a stabbing sensation, modifying, changing, trying to access the intention another way. If you weren't able to figure it out during class, you're like, oh, that one thing, like I just can't seem to make that work in my body. Reach out after class. Like I'm always wanting to help guide people and help them meet the intentions of the pose. Or you can shoot me a message. It just may be a little delayed in the chat box. And then lastly, this is the halfway mark. If you wanted to switch your face or switch your cheek the opposite direction, we hold for time, and I keep track of time on my phone. That's what I'm peeking at, halfway mark and a final minute. And we give these markers just to help you more easily surrender into the pose. And I guess the only other things that I'll say are a lot of the poses we practice in quiet and we practice in stillness. And I think there aren't a lot of areas in our lives, unless you have like a very regular meditation practice, where stillness is cultivated, encouraged, and allowed. And at least for me, when I very first entered into the yin practice, I was shocked at even like my environment was quiet. We were at the Vajra, like it was a very quiet space, but my mind was super loud. And so like knowing that in the silence, like sometimes you are met with a lot of mental activity. And if it becomes like overwhelming, really trying to bring your awareness back to your breath or something physical that you can focus on and direct your attention there again and again. Otherwise, when we do move out of these long holds, really moving slowly, moving intentionally, you do not have to rush out of it. And taking any release that your body's asking for. Veronica and I often give like options, but like what your body's asking for may not be that. It may be something more out of the box, if you will. So doing those movements, like that is what this is about, is coming into your body and really connecting with that rhythm, with that language. And I believe that is everything. And we're coming up on the final minute here. This sequence that we originally designed is kind of our upper body sequence. So we will be getting a lot into the shoulders today, that the ball and socket joint that is our shoulders. So knowing oftentimes like when we're like nervous, like there's kind of a lot of anxiety there. So if there's an emotional release and that comes up for you during the practice, like we really do tend to deposit and store compartmentalized feelings in the body. So knowing and acknowledging that could be a part of the practice. And if it's coming up for you, just turning towards that, you are very capable of being with that experience. And backing out if you need to back out, coming out if you need to come out. And gently begin to press yourself up from child's pose, coming into a tabletop. And I often find after a long hold like that, I love to kick my legs behind. You may be craving some alternate movements. Maybe you want to flow through cat and cow, flexion and extension of your spine. And I think the transitions are just as important as the poses. So really relishing in this experience, not rushing on to the next thing. And then coming to lay on your belly, coming into crocodile pose. And we'll start with the right arm out and then bring the hair, I'll face this direction. Bring the right cheek to the mat. Place the left palm by your face and then slowly begin to kick the left leg behind. And you may have to stop You may not come all the way to the outside edge of your body. You may have to stop somewhere, but just finding permanent depth for you in this pose. And also like maybe even taking some micro movements in the shoulder if it feels like too much, like really trying to support yourself in a way that is going to suit you. This is only going to be a 2-minute hold. We won't be here for super long. And I've got the timer going already. And this is the halfway mark. And there may be external sounds or things that draw you out of your practice. A lot of us are practicing in our homes. Some of us live in apartment buildings with neighbors that like to have dance parties upstairs. There just may be something that pulls you out of your practice. And if the senses do get pulled out, maybe there's like someone cooking in the other room, trying to redirect your attention back to your body, back to your breath, and also not resisting the distraction. Like it's definitely a part of the experience. And bringing the belly back down to the mat. And before we transition to the other side, we'll practice Sphinx pose. And for Sphinx pose, bringing the belly onto the ground, bringing the forearms to the ground like goalposts, and setting yourself up here. So the intention here is to feel compression in the lumbar spine, the lower back. And if there's a pinching sensation, bringing more distance in between your arms so the chest is a little bit lower down. I know some people have really flexy, bendy backs. If you're not feeling anything at all, you can bring the forearms up onto blocks or books. But knowing that we are going to be here for 4 minutes, so thinking, okay, like, can I sustain this for a time? You can also rest the head on your hands, kind of like the thinker pose. You can also let the head hang. You can rest on a block. And the intention of this pose is to get a workout in your arms. So it can be helpful sometimes to support the arms or bring a pillow under the chest, like giving yourself the time to set this up for success. And I'm going to go ahead and set our timer here. And just doing a little scan quickly and noticing if you're holding tension in your forehead or jaw, glutes or feet, relaxing the body. You don't have to hold on to any of that tension. And this is the halfway point. And I've been sharing this metaphor a lot lately. But the thinking of the senses as horses, your mind as reins, your body as the chariot, and then you yourself, the charioteer, like directing the horses, guiding them when the horses get distracted by a beautiful flower or like another horse out in the pasture, guiding the reins back. And this is the final minute marker. And for the final minute, you're welcome to stay exactly as you are in Sphinx pose. This is plenty. You're doing enough. Or you're welcome to press up into seal pose. And for seal pose, you can even walk the hands all the way back to under your shoulders. So you're kind of in like an aerial, like Little Mermaid moment where there's like whoosh, the water gusting up behind you. And so that way you're not using any activity or muscles in your arms, like you're pretty passively holding yourself up. And if you get up here and you're like, ooh, not today, that's okay too. Like you can always lower back down to your belly. And slowly begin to lower yourself back down. And especially, we're going to be doing some folding, so there will be some natural counter movement. If you want to come to a seat just real quick and flow through a seated cat-cow flexion and extension, I feel like it might be kind of cruel to go straight into crocodile after a long hold like that. Maybe just resting in flexion, channeling your Halloween cat spine. And then coming back down to the belly, and we'll practice crocodile on the left side. Extend the left arm out, bring the left cheek to the mat, plant the right palm, and then kick the right leg behind you. Coming to the outside edge of the left side of your body, or stopping at the level that feels appropriate. I am going to set the timer. And again, we'll be here for 2 minutes. And this is the halfway point. And intentionally decide how you would like to exit this pose. Moving slowly, bringing the belly back down to the earth, drawing the hand back in, and pressing yourself up into a seat or just like a hero's pose, sinking your hips over your heels, maybe doing some shoulder rolls forward, backward. Maybe you flow through flexion, extension in the spine again. And Veronica is going to guide us through the next segment of our class.
Thank you, Greta. Okay, so for our next class, we're in our seat. We're gonna come into a half butterfly with a fold over the leg. Now, there's a couple options for this if you have really tight hips or just wanna get into a more comfortable pose for yin. I'm personally gonna sit on this rolled up yoga mat and just prop it, if I were sitting this way, right here. So what this does is it's why I wish no more black, but it kind of tilts my pelvis a little bit more forward. So I'm able, with a slightly more tilted pelvis, to get deeper into my lumbar spine and do this pose, maybe be able to go a little bit deeper than I would if my, tailbone was more on a flat surface and I was just folding over. Because again, it's yin, we don't really necessarily want to stretch to our maximum point if we can't hold it for the amount of time. So go ahead and lean over we'll start with our left leg out, or if you're already there and you're on your right leg, that's fine too. And you kind of want to take the torso and slowly turn it so it's facing that left leg and gently lower yourself down. If you're inside the knee, that's totally fine. If you can reach your foot, that's good too. If you just kind of hang here, that's fine too. Just want to make sure nothing's pinching or pulling too much. Start the timer. Everyone looks great. And this is also after that child's pose, we got into our hips quite a bit, but this is a big beginning a series of bigger hip openers that we're about to do. So just mentally preparing for that. We're going to be in this pose for 4 minutes. We've already been in here for about a minute. If your knee is hurting in this position, a good modification for that is putting a block or maybe a pillow under that knee as well, just to give it some more support. This is our halfway point. And final minute. Over the next few breaths, maybe 4 or 5 breaths, begin to slowly roll up the spine, vertebrae by vertebrae, coming back up, having the head come up last, maybe giving your neck a little roll around, removing the block or yoga mat that you had underneath your pelvis, removing any support from the knee, and then maybe washing the knees out back and forth, rolling out the ankles, whatever feels good. And after we've finished our movements, we're going to move on to the next side. So this time bringing the right leg out and the left leg in like a butterfly. Now also your left leg, it doesn't have to be this high up. It could be down here. It could be out wide. Whatever feels comfortable and most useful for you. If you need a pad underneath the right knee, add a pillow. If you need to lie down on a pillow in front of you for support, feel free to do that. But go ahead and with a straight spine, simply fall over that right leg. Let's start the timer. And no two sides are the same. So especially in hip, when we're working into our hips, we can definitely feel when two sides are not the same. And this side might be more flexible and feel better, and the left side was a struggle, or, you know, this side might be the one that's really loud. And whatever it is, meet it at its edge, giving it, you know, the relaxation from the exhales. And hold for a time. All right, this is our halfway point. You can assess where you are at your edge. Maybe it's allowing you to go a little bit deeper. Maybe you want to stay right where we are. Final minute. All right. And over the next couple of breaths, vertebrae by vertebrae. Maybe on your third breath, in your third inhale, that's when you rise the neck up to level the head. Maybe on the fourth exhale, that's when you bring the leg back closer to the body. And keep your props handy because now we're going to do a straddle, a full straddle, which is the 2 half butterflies, but you take out the bent knee. Or just like this. Again, you can prop your pelvis up. I really like, especially in this pose, to tilt forward. And this is as far as you may go. And that's okay. You don't have to be all the way down. You don't have to be touching and reaching your toes. You can just fold forward. If you have a bolster or a pillow to hug, please do. Sometimes people like to also support their forehead with a block. That's great as well. And also you can just take regular butterfly too if this is way too much, but I kind of like the straddle because you get really into those adductors of the hip and I just feel like it releases the lower back. And when you come to laying forward, again, arms can be anywhere too, if they're comfortable on your legs, if they're comfortable out in front. Meeting your gentle edge. We'll be here for 4 minutes as we wear both sides. All right, we're coming up on our halfway point. Probably really feeling it right now, and that's good. Just make sure it isn't painful. I know I'm feeling it all in the, of course, in the middle of my thigh, but I'm also feeling it in my lower back. You might also be feeling it in your neck. This is a deep flexion of the cervical spine of your neck. And the whole spine is really in flexion too, but these 2 big bones in your hip sockets are now pulling, also in the other direction. So there's a lot going on. And that's the beauty of yin, is finding like a nice, deep, big breath, even though Oh, there is so much going on. We're coming up on our final minute. All right. Slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, coming back up. And move slowly. This was a big, long hold. Bringing the knees back up and together. Maybe taking whatever free movement feels good. Sometimes the counter movements in yin, even if it's as simple as windshield wiping your legs, maybe doing an up, like a bridge type thing, maybe doing another child's pose or a twist. They're just as important as all these long holds. They kind of, are a nice readjustment because we're about to go into the next one, which is the longest hold of the class. So we're going into supported fish. For supported fish, you will want a prop. Rolled up yoga mat is great. I'm going to opt for a block or with a pillow on top of it. But we're going to place the block about 1/3 of a way down, I'd say, from the top of the mat, right where our shoulder, if we're lying flat, our shoulder blades right between them would go right where that prop is. I'm adding an extra pillow on top because I really want to, as I lay back, and I like to lay back with my knees bent first to kind of support the lower back as it goes down. And then you just kind of want to open up. Now, a lot of people also take like a butterfly or a cross leg position in this. This is great if you want to keep opening up your hips, or you can have your legs out long and have this stretch be much more isolated to the top. As for your neck, some people like to have it hang off. This gives a nice stretch to the front of the neck and also maybe a nice release to the jaw as well. But if it's making you dizzy or just feels uncomfortable, add an extra pillow to the back of your head. And that way your head will be supported and you'll still get the same action of opening up the chest and shortening the rhomboids. So once we've found our supported fish, whatever's comfortable, whatever leg position is most fitting for you today. Also remembering that this pose is kind of the opposite action of the way the way I spend much of my day, which is sitting down over a laptop, browsing YouTube. But this is the opposite action of that. And energetically, it's a lot more vulnerable as well. All of our organs are showing themselves free and open. Our heart is really the highest point right now. And so allowing that, and that we're completely safe in our comforts of our own homes, but still together. Noticing if anything is holding. I just released my jaw, and also my fingers were clenching a little. Maybe toes, there's where you can release tension in your toes. Maybe there's a place you can release tension in your back or in your chest or in your throat or in your eyes. We're about at our halfway point. My favorite thing about this pose is how much I feel like I could feel my diaphragm in this pose. I feel like the diaphragm is really what I like to focus on. I could really feel it pressing on my ribs. Not sure if anyone else can relate to that, but this is our final minute. All right, begin to almost envision how you're going to get out of this pose. Maybe you're going to start by moving the legs, bringing the feet flat on the mat, flexing the knees, finding a little stability there in the hips, maybe rolling off that structure that you built. Maybe getting a sip of water. Maybe just sitting in a nice hero's pose. That pose is such a great stretch for the front of the chest, and in Chinese medicine, your heart channel, of course, goes over the heart. But it's one of the best poses for insomnia. So hoping a good night's sleep on everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Veronica. All right. And actually, does everybody want to, if you're not in hero's pose, just coming there for a moment, especially after a back bend like that. You can have your eyes open or you can shut the eyes down. But just giving yourself a moment to settle and return to the earth, return to the rhythm of your breath. Release any tension. You can kind of shake it off or flick it away. And we will seal class with a twist and also Shavasana. And we've been leaving time. Not every class there's time to have a long twist at the end of class, but we're doing another long twist tonight. So if you want to come back to laying back down and extend your legs out long, bring the knees in towards your chest. You can roll around on the flat part of your back, the sacrum. And I'm really craving like a happy baby pose. So maybe that's from when we were doing our folds earlier, taking any wiggles that you need. But then settling in, extend the left leg out long, hug the right knee in towards your chest. You can roll the ankle clockwise, counterclockwise, bring the right knee towards your right armpit. And you're welcome to move into a gentle supine twist from here, but I'm going to guide us through twisted roots. If you're a Vinyasa practitioner, you might know this as a supine twist with eagle legs. So bring the right leg up and over the left leg. And this is a good place to be. There's also the option of bringing the right shin behind the left calf muscle, going for the double bind. That may not feel right in your body, it may just be the one bind. Either way, let the feet touch the ground, let the knees, that whole structure fall towards the left, and then cast your right arm out towards the right side, kind of creating a half T. And you can direct your gaze towards those right fingertips. You can cast your gaze up towards the ceiling. And getting yourself situated. And also knowing in the twist that it's okay if the right shoulder pops up a little bit. And it's also okay if the right knee doesn't touch down all the way. You can even support it with a pillow or something. Knowing that we will be here for time. So just thinking how you can sustainably arrive into the twist. I've got the timer going. And we save twist for the end of class. Kind of, it returns our nervous system kind of back to a state of homeostasis. It's kind of like that final rinse. I don't know why I always picture like a tie dye, like with rubber bands, and you're kind of like rinsing it, or you can think of like a towel. But coming back to center. We are approaching the halfway mark here. And if the bind becomes too much in the legs or there's tension in the knee, you can always choose to unthread the bind and just go with the twist. And this is the final minute. And slowly bring the knees back towards center, really moving deliberately, knowing where each bone is going to go, maybe before it gets there, even unthreading your legs, doing any counter movement that is necessary. You may want to extend the legs or do a bridge really quick, whatever is going to feel good for you and your body right now. And then we will transition on to the other side. So extend your right leg out long this time. Hug the left knee in towards your chest. You can roll the ankle clockwise, counterclockwise. There may be some nice cracks and pops. And then draw the left knee in towards the left armpit. And you're welcome to move right on into a supine twist or to join me in the eagle leg version, or in yin we call it twisted root. This time bringing left leg up and over right leg. And this is a good place to be, or you may want to bring left shin behind right calf muscle. And then let the legs fall towards the right this time. Left arm goes out like half of a T, and your gaze can go that direction also. You may choose to bring the right hand onto the belly, so you can kind of feel the rise and the fall of the belly that is caused by the breath. And also noticing like this side may be totally different. And knowing that is absolutely okay and it's common. And the reason that you may be asymmetrical is because we've lived lives where we've had to often have a dominant hand. You may have an example I just thought of, like scooped ice cream with your right hand for a full summer. And so the right side might be much stronger, or there's just many instances in our lives where we have to compensate in some way. So knowing that's a part of you and it's a part of your physical being, and it's okay for it to be that way. I'm just noticing it. And this is the halfway point. And final minute. And slowly begin to move back towards center, lifting the legs, unbinding the legs, and taking any last movements before moving into final rest, Shavasana. You may want to come into an Apanasana, which is kind of like a cannonball shape, and then release into final rest. You're welcome to take Shavasana on the back, on the side, on the belly, and we'll be here for time. I will let you know when it's time to come up and out of the practice. And settling in, and it kind of dawned on me in that twist that we are very much approaching the full moon. The full moon is technically tomorrow, but if you follow the lunar cycles, the full moon it's the halfway point in the cycle of the moon. So things could really be culminating. It's kind of like the peak. Um, I often think of it as a really good time to kind of like reflect, like maybe you've been building, growing, and there's some loose strings you need to wrap up. And also, it can be a really good time to like reflect and listen, see if there's any downloads of information that come through. So using maybe using the full moon as the focal point to direct your awareness. If you're not into it, that's okay. Go back to the breath, use those tools, find your diaphragm, your lungs, your ribs, and I'll let you know when it's time to come up and out of the practice. And slowly begin to invite some movement back into your body. It can start really subtle, really soft, really small. And then it can build. Maybe you flick your fingers, bounce your legs, and eventually get to a place where the arms are lifted up ahead, like they're stretching. Bring the knees in towards your chest and roll over onto the right or the left side. The left side is going to be more lunar, receptive, mysterious, kind of in alignment with this practice. You can always roll to the right though, like this is your life. I'm not going to tell you which direction to roll. And then using the bicep like a pillow, coming into this fetal position, extending a wave of gratitude for doing this practice that is not only beneficial in terms of practicing like the qualities of yielding, nurturing, and allowing, but also doing something really good for bone regeneration, for stressing and compressing the connective tissues, fascia, kind of preventing the shrink wrapping of all that that's going on inside. Also honoring the lineage of this practice. Some of the first yoga poses, like in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, are very yin in nature. And this is a yin class. I already mentioned yin comes from Taoist theory, Chinese medicine, meridian theory. So incorporating those elements as well, honoring those traditions, and also honoring unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, Duwamish people that occupy here in Seattle. And Veronica is teaching from Brooklyn. So honoring the unceded ancestral lands of the Lapade, Canarsie, and Rockaway people as well. And you can gently begin to press yourself up to a seat, and we'll meet with hands at heart center if that feels authentic to you, in a gesture that represents non-dualism, the coming together of oppositional forces, the yin and the yang, and then bringing hands from heart center to third eye, strengthening connection between heart and mind, and bowing forward to seal in your practice, honoring the full self, both the luminous and the shadowy aspects. Peace and thank you. Really appreciate everyone that showed up for class today. What a fun group. I'm gonna go ahead